Think about your favorite t-shirt or dress. How do you feel about the neckline? Necklines sit front and center on our bodies, so if the neckline is too high or low, or you really prefer V-necks to crew necks, you might find yourself wearing that garment not quite as much as you'd like to. Luckily, necklines are really easy to adjust. If you find a pattern that fits you great, but you aren't that into the neck, all you have to do is change it. Sometimes you might find that you like the shape or the style of the existing neckline, but you just want to tweak it slightly to your preference. Maybe you want it to sit a little bit higher, or maybe you want it to sit a little lower. To be honest, raising or lowering a neckline is probably the easiest adjustment to make because you aren't redrafting the neckline entirely. Here is how I like to make this pattern change. In this example, I'm raising the neckline of the mica pattern, which features a pretty deep V neckline. Remove the seam allowance at the shoulder seam and the neckline. Then, determine the desired width and depth of your neckline. Want to add a bit at the shoulder for a better bra coverage or raise the neckline for your comfort? That's no prob. Hold the cut pattern piece against your body. Align the center front of the pattern piece with the center line of your body. And then align the shoulder seam along your shoulder. Use a ruler to measure where you want to adjust the neckline and by how much you want to adjust the neckline. Lay your pattern pieces on your work surface and tape some pattern paper underneath the existing neckline if necessary. Use a ruler to mark the desired neckline at the shoulder and at the center front, where you want to reduce or add. Here, I'm raising the neckline by 3 inches. Then, use a curved ruler to redraw the neckline. Just a note, the mica pattern has a center front seam, but your pattern may not. If your pattern does have a center front seam, make sure you're raising it along the stitch line. If you made any updates at the shoulder, be sure to match that on the back pattern piece. There you have it. It really is that easy. Note, if you're making any significant changes, I might recommend following the V-neck or crew neck tutorial to account for the chest and shoulder contours. Check out those instructions if you plan on lowering or raising the neckline by anything more than 3 or 4 inches. While the steps to adjust a neckline shape were the same from knit to woven, the necklines themselves require different finishing methods. Let's take a look at some different neckline finishing options. Knit neckbands are drafted to be smaller than the opening that they finish. This ensures a couple of things. One, that the neckband is flat against the body instead of flipping out and away. And two, the neckline itself hugs the body and doesn't gape. Drafting a knit neckband is simply a matter of measuring your neckline and doing a little math. Start by measuring the front and back neckline of your pattern. Using a flexible tape measure makes this bit a little bit easier. Take this measurement and multiply it by 0.7. This will give you a neckline ratio of 70%, which I find works pretty well for a lot of projects. This measurement is your neckband length. Then, decide on your desired neckband width. A width of between a ½ inch and 1 inch is pretty common. Multiply this number by 2, and this is your neckband width. Draw a rectangle that is your neckband length by your neckband width. Then add 3/8 inch seam allowance along all edges and cut. A facing is a great way to finish a woven garment, but it also can work for more stable knits. Using a tracing wheel, trace along the stitch lines of the front neckline, shoulder seam, and center front of your front pattern piece. Use your rulers to redraw all the trace lines. Using a clear ruler, reduce the entire neckline by 1/8 of an inch. This is going to help encourage the neckline to roll towards the inside so you don't see the facing peeking out. Draw a line parallel and below the neckline. The distance between this line and the neckline should be your desired facing width. I like a facing that is no less than 2 inches wide. If you're working with a facing for a V-neck, you can square off the bottom of your facing so that it won't be pointed. Then add seam allowance to the shoulder seam and neckline and cut it out. Repeat along the back neckline to create a back facing. A single fold bias tape finish is great for woven projects. This finish is super easy to draft and it requires very little math. It's simply a matter of measuring and drawing a rectangle. Start by measuring your front and back neckline on your pattern. Using a flexible tape measure makes this bit a little bit easier. This measurement is your bias tape length. Here's a tip if you're taking measurements on the fold and you need to double it, but you don't want to do the math. After you measure the front with a soft tape measure, fold the tape measure in half and easily, mathlessly calculate double. Then decide on your desired bias width. A 1/2 inch is pretty common. Multiply this number by 2. This is your bias tape width. Note, if you want to use double fold bias tape, just multiply this finished width by 4 instead. Draw a rectangle that is your neckband length by your neckband width. Add a 3/8 inch seam allowance along the short edge and cut. With these simple neckline adjustments, you can make any pattern work for your style. Once again, don't skip out on a pattern just because you don't like the neckline. Instead, draft your dream neckline. Happy sewing!